Bine v-ați revenit. Ladies and gentlemen, we will start directly the second panel in English. Therefore, for those which need translations, you are free to get some headsets from the entrance. And we'll do so because we are delighted to have the panel full of international experience, and it's easier to have a better dialogue in the understanding. We have two colleagues, the female ones are missing in presence. They are online joining us, and I'm very happy to see friends from the Women in Cycling ambassadors. We talk about solutions in mobility and alternative transport in the second panel. So welcome, Thiago. Have a seat. I joined you a little bit more closer because it's much cozier like this. And we transport specialists or health specialists, which are talking about how people do commute, we like to stay together, like in the buses, you know. Otherwise, on the bikes, we like the freedom. I see Isabell. Welcome, Isabell EBERLEIN. Good to see you again. Good to see you. The last time I saw you in July in Expo Bike in Frankfurt. It was a great event. Over 1,000 cycling industry representatives and a great conference you lined up. I was delighted to participate over there, and you are among cycling activists, very well known in Western Europe, and also very active through the cycling industry Europe in terms of advocating for women. And I know that you prepared also a presentation. We start with you there because I understood that you need to leave us, unfortunately, around 11. But before you start your presentation, please let me introduce the whole panel. So you have an idea of all the gentlemen which are joining me today. Live online will be also Pinar PINZUTI from Bikenomist. She's also a very well-known activist. We like to say about her a little bit utopian thinker when it comes about mobility. She will tell you more about social and economical benefits of cycling and why she embraced the bike as a means of transportation, but also a life. But we don't talk only about bikes. We have from Romania also well-known experts in terms of mobility planning. I'm very happy to have Tudor MânciCân. He's an expert in mobility, involved in a very important projects on the SUMP and the sustainable mobility plans in different cities of Romania. So he really knows the big questions Romanian mayors are really raising up, how to change the city, how to make it easier for people to have access. And the questions will be, of course, about inclusion, about how we think about the city and how we put the human being at the heart of whatever we do when we talk about planning out the city and let the vehicle out. And then, of course, I'm very happy to have from Spain, José MAYORAL MORATILLA. He's an architect, in fact, and has an interesting project in Romania he will tell you about, of course, in the topic of mobility. And last but not least, a very dear friend of mine. I saw him 4 years before the pandemic the last time, correct? Thiago, he's from the World Health Organization, leading the Department of Elderly. I know you since you were from the active mobility part of the WHO, and I'm very looking into a great presentation, but also great discussion. As I said, we will start with you, Isabell, back to you in Germany. Please, I'm very looking forward to see your presentation and give us a bit of a drive for our mayors in Romania and the international experts we are having here. Welcome to Brașov. Welcome to the Forum of Green Cities.
Thank you, Annika. I hope you can hear me. I hope that works.
I hear you very well.
Perfect. At the moment,
I don't hear you anymore.
Anymore? Okay.
Yes, now it's okay.
Okay, good. So
changing.
let's hope that the Wi-Fi is stable over here. I just said that I'm not able to show my presentation with you, but that's not a big deal. I can also explain you a little bit about what I do and what I like to bring forward to the panel. I'm very happy to be invited, so thank you very much for the invitation. I'm so sorry that I can't come to Romania. I hope that I will be able to soon visit your beautiful country. I heard a lot about in the opening and panel discussion. What Raluca already said is what drives me is...
We don't hear you again. I'm sorry. I will need a bit of help from the technical part. Let's see.
Okay.
Now, yes. Now again. Exactly.
Okay.
So what drives you?
Sorry for the unstable connection. I hope that's from my side. What I was trying to say is that I'm very much
This is very unfortunate. We really don't hear anything. Let's try to see. Yeah. Okay.
Is it?
Now it seems to be better.
Now there's also my presentation. Okay, I'll be.
I think it's specially made for not understanding what she wants to say. I think the mayor don't want to understand what it's about cycling. You don't hear exactly what you say. My point is, and then I want to stress out.
Okay, so maybe there's some drama about the messages. And cycling network to make mobility more inclusive, and especially to make the mobility sector more inclusive. And I'm addressing here the mayors, but also the industry, the manufacturers, the bike shops, the civil societal organization. My main point is we have
Very difficult. I'm sorry, Isabell, it's really not going with the connection.
Okay.
I will propose the following. I know that you have a very short time frame. I will ask the technical support to see if they can make a stable connection. Meanwhile, we will go a little bit further in our topic, in our discussion. And if I get a sign afterwards from the technical department that it's all okay, we'll join back to you, hopefully in time to have you with your presentation and to see how it goes. So I'm going back to Romania, but through Spain somehow. And I'm happy to have José here. You are an architect, and you are in Romania doing something amazing on the river of Somes. Would you like to tell us a bit more? Thank you.
For the presentation?
You have the over there the stick for changing the slides? Exactly. And I will kindly ask you after your presentation to also leave it over there. Great.
Super. Well, thank you everyone for the invitation. It's a pleasure for us to be here in this fantastic venue and this beautiful city, and to be able to explain the Somes project, a project that we have been working on for already 5 years, and we believe it can be an interesting case study and hopefully spark some conversations today in this debate. Do you know how can I reach the?
You just use this. We need a presentation. How can we change the slides? 1 second. It's very cool that we talk about autonomous driving when we talk about mobility, but we still have problems with connectivity in the most simplest sense, in PowerPoints and everything, but I hope the cars will function much better. Otherwise, we'll go to interconnected bikes. No? So, here is your presentation.
Fantastic. Well, so as I was mentioning, I'm going to talk about a project that we're actually building right now in Romania, in Cluj-Napoca, which is the Somes project. As many of you know, the river Somes is a very long river, 451 kilometers, that starts at the Carpathian Mountains and connected through a system of river, eventually reaches the Black Sea. So this river crosses through the city of Cluj-Napoca. There we go. And as it passes through the city of Cluj-Napoca, it crosses many different areas, like the city center, then the airport in the east. You also have some industrial areas in the northeast, neighborhoods that also were built in the 60s and 70s, and also other residential areas. So we got involved in this project. This was back in 2017 through a public competition, an international one that was organized by the city of Cluj and also by the Chamber of Architects. And now actually the project is under construction. So the competition put on top of the table a quite interesting topic, how you can potentially rethink the relationship between the river and the city throughout its 15 kilometers. A relationship that somehow has been quite conflicted. It has been deteriorating over the last 3-4 decades, to that point that the city doesn't really benefit of this asset, but actually turns the back to it. A dialogue that as I was saying is conflictive. There are not really uses of programs that foster that relationship, and in a way, the river has been understood as a hard infrastructure. There are electric towers that talk about that nature, And also, in a way, over the last 4 or 5 decades, the river has been seen as a kind of channel, as a DAC, which main goal is to transport energy and water. And for this reason, it has been domesticated through a system of concrete walls that, as you can see in this image, create a drastic high difference between the river itself and the population, to that point that the residents, they are not even conscious of the existence of this river. So the challenge was there on top of the table, how you could potentially rethink and reformulate this hard infrastructure to turn it into a public space. So while looking at this challenge, we had kind of a set of goals and ambitions from ecology, sense of place, and sustainable mobility. When it comes down to ecology, it was very critical for us to renaturalize the river, somehow bring the river back in time, get rid of those concrete walls as much as possible, and allow nature to kind of reconquer the river banks again. When talking about sense of place, in some particular areas, it was critical to reconnect the city and the river, somehow being able to bridge that gap, somehow bring the river back to the city and allow it to be part of the collective imagination through a set of strategies like creating new beaches, modifying the topography, improving the accessibility, creating some platforms, and so on. Last but not least, the Somes was seen as an urban connector of public spaces, not so much like a line that divides the entire city into two parts, the north and the south, but actually rather a thicker band that has the capacity to include ecological system and also integrate public spaces, all interconnected through a system of bikes and pedestrian paths. So this is the entire project that we always like to show this image because you get a sense of the scale. For you who knows Cluj, on the lower left part you can see the stadium. So you get a sense of the scale of this project, and also you can see how in some cases it's wider, sometimes it's narrower, but it's always at least like 15 meters in order to be able to include pedestrians and bike paths. In other parts it gets wider as it acquires some public spaces and different green areas. Within this sustainable mobility strategy, it was key to build footbridges that were key to establish these north connections. As I was mentioning before, the river Somes is crossing from west to east. And also, they were designed in such a way to avoid that a pedestrian who had to walk more than 15 minutes in order to be able to cross the river. Then it was obviously key to have a system of bike paths. First of all, the river was understood as this kind of main spine of urban mobility, as you can see in the strategy number 1, but then also some key unprotected areas were somehow protected in order to leave the biodiversity. So in some areas, the bike paths were pushed away from the river. Also, it was super important to connect the 16 fragmented bike paths and again, achieve these north-south links. So here in this image, you can see, if you're able to kind of go back to the beginning of the presentation and envision this sharp concrete edge, that one is transformed into like a wider one, a softer one, where you can include ecological system, recreational areas, and of course, bike and pedestrian paths, as it happens here with this diagonal path that aim to stitch the river with the city of Cluj. It was also critical to rethink the traffic, the roads. So they are kind of main primary roads with a high volume of traffic that kind of run parallel to the river. So the proposal in a kind of master plan level was trying to redirect part of that traffic volume farther away from the river margins in order to only allow for like slow streets, shared spaces, and more ecological strategies next to the river Somes. As you can see in one of these areas in Mucicescu Estrada, in which you have this shared space. So actually, the base of everything that I have talked about is this, that the project is now under construction. Here you can see how the topography is being modified. These footbridges that I was mentioning before are being built, and also this system of bike paths and pedestrian paths are also under construction in the area of La Playa, for those who knows the city of Cluj. So this project has received a lot of interest, not only in Cluj-Napoca and in Romania, but also abroad. We were invited last year to present this project at the Venice Biennale, and we put together this large model, this 25 meters model of the entire project that would cross the entire Arsenale. And now, actually, in the fall, we're taking it to the Lisbon Triennale. So if you're interested about the Summers project, you can come to Lisbon in the fall, or you can also wait a little bit longer and come to Cluj next year and see it yourself with your own eyes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jose. I think that I will vote to go to Cluj because I see it really in practice, and also my carbon footprint will be a bit more small than traveling to Lisbon, not that it's not a magnificent city. Congratulations for the project. My first question towards you will be, what was the main challenge for you? And we focus on the mobility part of the project. Yes, microphones.
Thank you. So one of the main challenges of this project, considering the large scale of it, it was to be able to put on the same table all these different institutions. So we had to deal with, and we have to discuss and have conversations with Appele Romane, which is the water company, Electrica, Transelectrica, the Monuments Committee, the municipality. So considering the scale of the project and also the location right in the middle of the city, and then that was interacting with all these different parts of the city, that was quite of a challenge. Like we won this international competition back in 2017, that kind of set the basis for the project, but afterwards it had to go through like a process of contextualization, and you had the process to kind of dialogue and convince all these public institutions that this was actually a good project eventually for the city and for the citizens of Cluj-Napoca, because obviously they all have their own particular worries and concerns. So that was one, and more specifically in terms of urban mobility, one of the main, as I was explaining in the presentation, the river Somes is envisioned as this kind of main spine of sustainable mobility, where you have this system of bikes and pedestrian paths. So obviously you wanna achieve that. You wanna be able to like kind of bike next to the river throughout 15 kilometers, and hopefully even connects to the towns that are next to it, like Floresti. So one of the main challenges, and also in my opinion one of the most important topics when it comes down to like sustainable mobility and bike path, was how you can potentially achieve the continuations of those paths, because you have this long bike path, but you are encountering all the time with different challenges, like you have physical barriers, you have private properties, sometimes you bump into parking, and there's not enough space, you bump into different streets. So one of the main challenges, and I'm sure you probably also agree with me, I hope, is how you can achieve that continuity of the entire logistic system.
We'll come back about the planning and about the SAMP, but now I understand from the technical department we have a stable connection with Isabell EBERLEIN, and I don't want to lose the possibility to talk with her because I know she has to leave earlier today. So I'm going back to Isabell. Let's see if this time it works, because when you plan, you need inclusion. You need to take in consideration also the needs of other stakeholders except the men which are going by bike to the office. But what about the women, the children, the elderly, which also need to be in the stakeholder dialogue directly involved? Isabell, do we hear you right now?
Yes, let's try again. I hear you perfectly.
Perfect.
I hope you do as well. Great. I'll be very quick. And focus on the main points. As you said, it's important to include other groups into planning, and that's why we founded this Women in Cycling Network. I will tell you shortly about it. But the main question was, where are all the women? And that's probably my main point I want to make, is whenever you are at a decision-making table, please consider how diverse is your table. Is that only a certain group of people sitting there? Is it only white, educated men in a good physical and mental health situation sitting there, or who is at the decision-making table? And that was the initial point when we looked at the cycling industry or at the decision-making bodies at city levels, that we found out it's a major group missing, and that's the women in the end. And of course, we have to be even more diverse, looking at, different kinds of backgrounds, age, migration backgrounds, so on and so forth. But at the main point, we were focusing on the empowerment and inclusivity of women. And to tell you a little bit about it, it's what's so cool about this network and about this group is that we work cross-sectoral, and that would be my second message. So it is important when we look at mobility to not look only at planning or politics or the cycling industry, the manufacturers, the trade organizations. We have to work together. And that's actually what we did with this network. So we came together as industry partners, but also as civil societal organizations. We included also ministers like Elke van den Brand, the transport minister of the Brussels region. So we're trying to work cross-sectoral, because that's the only way how we can move this mobility sector forward. And our mission is that we can, by becoming more inclusive, we can harvest the potential of cycling across the mobility sector. That's the main thing that we want to do. And we want to provide equal opportunities for women, but in the end, actually for all to be able to cycle and to be able to move sustainably around. And just to give you some things that we do, and also to probably give the message to all the women who are in the room. I can't see you, unfortunately, but I would like to really very much encourage you to sign up for our expertise portal. We try to bring women, to get women more visibility. So please sign up so you can be a speaker on a panel and so on and so forth. And we have a LinkedIn group with more than 1,000 participants where we ask for help. We share jobs. It is just about, empowering ourselves. And we also have a very range group of ambassadors. Raluca is one of them, but also Pinar is one of them. And we're also enlarging our group of ambassadors more and more. And in the end, it is, this is just an example, but as I said, my main points are: make sure you have a diverse group of representation, and make sure to work cross-sectoral, and also to, with all these droughts, with all these heat waves happening at the moment, we really have to collaborate in order to make an impact with transforming the mobility sector in regards to climate change. So I hope you could hear me clear and sound, and that will be my take for now.
Very much, Isabell, for joining us. We heard you clear and sound, and the message arrived, I think, also very clear. We talk about women, but we talk also about other people in our community. We have the children, which mainly are represented mostly in stakeholder dialogue through the women and through because they understand more closely the needs going with them to school or kindergarten and like this. But we have also another category of people which, unfortunately, especially in Eastern European countries, are struggling with their day-to-day existence, and we talk about our elderly. I'm very happy and delighted to have today from Geneva, joining to us from the World Health Organization, Thiago Dassin. You are leading the elderly department. You have to tell me more about it, because I know you, as I said from the beginning, in the active mobility, that you also, like a big bike activist and a public transport supporter, where walking and cycling is on the agenda of the World Health Organization. But how important is inclusiveness in thinking and projecting our cities? Excellent. Thiago.
Thank you. So Raluca, it's actually excellent to be here and to know you, to meet you after so many years. You will see that actually my job just got bigger and a bit more complex, and I would like to share some thoughts with you today. while the colleagues are putting my presentation up, I would just like to start by thanking very much. Now, for me, it's a privilege to be in Romania for the first time, and certainly in Brașov, this beautiful city. So I would like to start, even before the presentation, just by highlighting the main reason for us to develop communities that foster the mobility of older people. And that is to ensure that people live well, that everyone lives well. And in doing that, we also ensure that we save the only planet we have. Because at the end of the day, this is our common home. And with climate change and environmental degradation, this can no longer be the case in the near future. Now, with that in mind, I would like to start my presentation showcasing some of the potential health and economic gains that we can harvest through a sustainable mobility system, bringing the results of a study developed in a mid-sized city, a bit smaller than the one we're in today. So in the case of Port Louis, which is the city of this example, we could, with a sustainable mobility system, avert 13 premature deaths per year, and also have economic gains of around $23 million per year. And this only focusing on actions in the transport sector. I just told Aira Luca that my work got a bit bigger. So we are not considering in this analysis all the other areas that are relevant for us to create cities and communities where everyone can live well, as you can see on this beautiful flower on your right-hand side. Now, interventions to improve mobility, they can certainly help avert deaths, they can provide economic returns, but this is not enough. Because at the end of the day, as you know, urbanization and population aging together with climate change is radically shifting the way we live. And it is true that while we are living longer, it's not necessarily true that we have made the same gains in terms of healthy life expectancy. So just to put in simple terms what these graphs are trying to show, we are being able to add years to life, but not necessarily to add life to years. And that is why the World Health Organization has been working for many years now to enable cities and communities to create environments in which people can grow older well, that enables us all to meet their basic needs, to learn, grow, and make decisions, to be mobile, to build and maintain relationships, and to contribute to society. And it's not by chance that ensuring that communities foster the abilities of older people is one of the 4 action areas of the UN Decade for Healthy Aging, which started last year, and it's going to last until 2030 and hopefully more. Now, I'm sure that everyone in this room is convinced of the importance of sustainable mobility, but I have been asked by the organizers to share with you some concrete solutions on how we can do that not only for people, but with them. And we would like to advocate here that the approach developed for age-friendly cities and communities to be used as a means of achieving this bright future for all. And there's already extensive guidance on how to do it. And I just shared here some examples with you all in case you're interested to look at. But now, more important than that, that guidance has already been put to use, because the good news is that through our global network for age-friendly cities and communities created 12 years ago, we already have a growing global community of cities, countries, experts, civil society, all sharing the vision that every city and community strives to become more age-friendly. The Finnish cities of Lahti and Tampere, mentioned by Madam Ambassador, are already part of the global network. And we also have 17 outstanding affiliate programs in several countries, as you see highlighted here on the dark blue and also the dashed blue for subnational affiliates. Now, today, what I would like to share with you is what these people are already doing, because they are doing a lot. And we are compiling these practices and putting them on the global database for age-friendly cities and communities. And I would just like to briefly share with you 3 examples on how we can use this framework to put people at the center of the transformation we need for sustainable mobility. The first one is coming from a member. So the Ennis town, has implemented a number of walkability audits that were conducted with the Older People's Council, but also with wheelchair users and persons with limited abilities to assess the city, to see what is working and what is not working for them. So they developed a strategy, an action plan, and then after that, the town, Ennis town, responded with a number of changes. Not only infrastructural changes, now enhancing the shared surface, you see it's a beautiful surface to walk, but also changing the way businesses address and welcome older people in that community, for example. Now, the second example I would like to bring here is not coming from a city or a town. It's coming from one of the affiliates, in this case, our Francophone Network for Age-Friendly Cities. So what the Francophone Network does is a funding scheme to support the territories with a focus on small communities and towns to actually put in place the community support grant that will ultimately do what the community just did in Ennis town that I've mentioned. So they finance with seed money, and we have one axe of this support grant scheme to finance people to get together, to produce an inventory, and to pilot a participatory approach where people identify the needs and aspirations in all the domains of age-friendly cities and communities, including mobility. And then there's a second tranche of money that will actually support the implementation of the interventions that are needed to respond to those needs and aspirations. So what I would like to highlight here, in addition to this component of trust that we just saw in the other example, is the vertical integration, because we have the ministerial level engaged, we have national public banks engaged, we have the local authority engaged, and of course we have older people themselves driving the agenda, the community leading the solutions at the local level. The third example is very interesting, and I would like to just stress here that when we think about mobility, usually we tend to think about people wanting to go from point A to point B in a city. But this is also the case when it comes to going from point A to point B in your own home. This is also about mobility. So what this project does, the age-friendly Healthy Age Homes program from Age-Friendly Ireland, which is also a national affiliate, is to bring together several policies and activities that are already there, but not necessarily organized and coordinated in a way that reaches older people and their families in an efficient way. So you have a local coordinator that establishes a relationship of trust with those families, performs a needs assessment to understand what is that they need to continue living in their own place. And sometimes that involves right-sizing. We know that oftentimes old couples are left with a big house, kids leave, they go to work elsewhere, and then that house is too big, too costly, too time-consuming for them. So right-sizing, also improving the energy efficiency, improving accessibility, the infrastructure of the house, very much focusing on universal access and other innovative architectural designs. And then, of course, making sure that these people are receiving the care, the social and the health care that they deserve. Now, I could be talking about the many examples that I invite you to have a look at in the global database of age-friendly cities and communities, but I know that now we have an agenda to cover. I would just like to highlight here, Raluca. So a good Romanian friend of mine told me that Romanians like to take things with a pinch of humor. So I would like to say a little joke here. Let's imagine that a mayor today prohibits 20% of its population to benefit from city life. So you can no longer take public transport, you cannot do shopping, you have to stay at home quiet. I'm sure that he or she would be fired on the next day. So by not addressing the population aging, this is what we are doing. We are preventing these people from fully engaging in society. So I'm sure that cities and communities in Romania and many other parts of Europe are doing amazing stuff, are doing excellent work, and working hard to make their communities become more age-friendly. And I would strongly encourage those that are interested in joining this global community to please reach out just so that you can contact others, inspire and get inspired, exchange knowledge and support. So I leave this last slide with the link to apply. I hope that the slides will be shared with the audience and some relevant information as well on the criteria. Please do not hesitate to reach out and contact me should you have any questions. That's me, and I once again thank you very much and look forward to continuing this amazing journey with local authorities and the communities together with the World Health Organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Thiago. A great point that we usually forget about the elderly, the ones which raise us and take care of us. I said it, unfortunately, especially in Eastern European countries, we do not have the necessary support or the political frame to really do this. But I think that cities can join, as you very well said, in the framework of the World Health Organization. So I encourage you to do so, to take this into account. I know that we have Henk Zwarta, president of the European Cycling Federation, in the room, and he said, where is the e-bike in this topic? Elderly and e-bikes is a huge success in Western Europe, but I'm sure that in the fourth panel where we'll have you will also point it out, because we have interesting studies which shows that the implementation either in bike share system or private-owned e-bikes are growing a big number of elderly which were not going by bike anymore because it was difficult or hard for them, and it's a huge success. But I will let Henk to get on the floor later on and tell us more. Now we are going to Italy, to Pinar. Hopefully she hears that. Here you are, beautiful as always. Good to have you here, this time in Brasov, even virtually. Next time you have to be by bike over here. Tell us about bike economics and your utopian way of thinking how the city should approach mobility.
Hello. Thank you very much for the invitation and greetings from Milan and from Italy. I would like to start with my first slide. I hope you see it. Just a second. So I hope you see my slides. As Isabell mentioned, I'm one of the ambassadors of the Women in Cycling, and I would like to give visibility to a movement, a grassroots movement run by independent women in more than 25 countries and almost in 200 cities. It was all born exactly 10 years ago when I was in Copenhagen, and I believed that Copenhagen and Amsterdam are the most bicycle-friendly cities of the world, and everybody would just consider cycling. And then I met a very young girl, 25 years old, just had her university degrees, and she told me, look, I don't use bicycle in Copenhagen because it is dangerous. There are too many cars in my city. And I said, oops, okay, I come from Turkey. I live in Germany. I'm living in Italy. I have never lived in a city, a bicycle-friendly city such as Copenhagen, and I still use the bicycle. So maybe the safety is just a big perception and very subjective. So how could we change this sensation and perception of safety regarding the cycling, especially for women? Me and my friend Sema from Izmir, from Turkey, we asked ourselves, how can we get more women in cycling, on the streets, moving around freely? So in 2013, the very first fancy women bike ride had some very unconventional rules, which were, so normally the bicycle scene tells you that you have to cycle very fast, you have to wear some very shiny and bright clothes, it should be probably Lycra, and your carbon frame bicycles should not have a weight over 7 kilos, such as these kind of rules. We said if we overturn these rules, maybe we can make cycling more accessible and more fun. So we asked our participants of our very first bicycle ride to dress up fancy, so it's just their imagination, and decorating their bicycles, cycling not more than 10 kilometers per hour. The maximum length of the tour is 5 kilometers, only in the city center and no hills. And the fifth rule was waving hands and greeting people looking at us. After the very first event, we have seen that it was easy giving this experience to every single woman, this relaxing and fun sensation of cycling. They have done their best to leave their houses, maybe after many, many years that they have left cycling when they were in their young ages. And they, at their adult ages, they have found the bicycle, maybe asked a neighbor to participate this ride, or their children's bicycles, and they made it on their own to the city center to participate to this ride. So it's already an experience. You have to maybe use the public transportation with your bicycle, and you just realize how many steps there are, or how high the pavements are in your street, and these kind of things. The sensation was good. The bicycle ride, the Fancy Women bicycle ride, had a big media coverage in 2013 and 14, and it started growing. Many cities just started to apply to me and to my friend, and they said we would like to have the ride. We started to produce manuals, some tutorials, how to communicate to people that they should be a part of this ride. And I am so proud to say that in 2 weeks' time, we're going to have our 10th anniversary, 10 years of Fancy Women Bike Ride in 25 countries, in 200 cities, from New Zealand to Canada. This bicycle ride has been run by independent women, because we said the bicycle associations and activists are already doing so many things, and they already have a lot of missions. So if we can get to the people who has nothing to do with bicycle activism, maybe we can get to their communities, like housewives or students, teachers, doctors, for example. These are the type of women who are organizing our local rides. And this protective environment that the bicycle ride is once a year, it's on a Sunday afternoon, on the third Sunday of September. And it is a group ride, gives this feeling of security and community. And on that day, this positive experience helps women to perceive cycling in a different way. It's not anymore about sweating, performance, and competition, but it is coming together, singing together, laughing together. And in a few years, the Fancy Women Bike Ride has been recognized also by the European Commission. Okay, don't think that we get funds or support. No, it's not like that. It's just a letter. Thanks a lot. And of course, in Copenhagen Index in 2019 as a successful grassroots movement. And this year from the United Nations, we have received also the World Bicycle Day Special Award for promoting cycling. We have now a manifesto. I mean, we started as a Facebook event, and now it's a global movement. It's a grassroots movement, and we still say in every city, every time we're asked, we said if there are more women cycle, then there will be even more women will be encouraged to cycle in their cities. If you want to look at the cities, until now we don't have any cities from Romania, but we have many, many more in different parts of Europe, North America, and now also in New Zealand. It is very easy to host a ride. Maybe next year we're going to have a couple of rides also in Romania. What happens when you cycle? So you start seeing things you have been looking at for a very long time. And when you see things, then you start to understand. And when you understand things, then you start to demand more. And that's where women ask for better design streets and public space and human-sized cities. And then comes to the conclusion of if we free our city centers from speedy cars that occupy our roads and our parks and our pavements and sidewalks and every single public space, then we can have more space for us to do other things and move safely. thank you very much. If you want to get in contact with me, this is my contact details.
Thank you very much, Pinar. It's very inspiring to see how women can go together and really raise the subject much. We talked in the last two presentations about accessibility and inclusion. So of course I'm going to the planners right now, the ones which need to make it happen. To change this, Pinar was saying the perception of cycling was changed in what they did. And it's important of changing mentality. In our case in Romania, and unfortunately I saw in the last two presentations, it's a big grey hole, no Romanian city is joining a WHO activity on elderly or women in cycling activities and crossing. So we have a lot of potential. It's about mentality and it's also about planning. Political will is a very, very important pillar in our society in Romania because we are afraid that taking away the car, the so loved car for our people and their parking places, we will get a tremendous and horrendous problem with our voters. But while we should understand, which are not only the socio-economical benefits of cycling, but also the personal benefits for each of and every of us, I think this goes quickly in a very short term. But I would like to invite Tudor MânCICăn, which is talking every day with authorities on different kind of levels to understand which are the struggles he's having, but also not only about bikes, but also about public transport as being part of our way of getting around. Please, Tudor.
So, greetings. I'm going to hold my presentation in Romanian because that's how I prepared, and then we'll switch back to English. So I'm sorry to all the English speakers. Am încercat să concentrez într-o prezentare și mă bucur să fiu aici în fața dumneavoastră bune practici și rețete de succes pentru a face transportul public cât mai utilizabil. Acum, ca și scop primordial, transportul public trebuie să preia cât mai multe dintre călătoriile unui oraș de la alte moduri de deplasare. Și, practic, în timp, să ajungă să presteze cât mai multe dintre călătoriile orașului, mai ales în defavoarea mașinii, luptând cot la cot cu bicicleta și cu mersul pe jos în a scăpa orașul de mașini. În a scăpa orașul de mașini există două direcții principale de mers și destul de puține căi de a le atinge. Pe de o parte sunt măsurile restrictive, nepopulare și greu de implementat, care țin de a lua străzi de la mașini sau cel puțin de a le oferi scump. Sigur, aici intră și un congestion charge, dar mai ales pietonalizări și politici de parcare agresive.
Pentru traducătorii noștri, să aibă timp să traducă ceea ce spui și tu, pentru cei care ne urmăresc și online, pentru că sunt foarte mulți care sunt în online și ne urmăresc și atunci și pentru aspeții noștri internaționali. Mulțumesc!
Sigur. Pe lângă măsurile restrictive, există măsurile alternative, practic cealaltă variantă față de mașină și aici transportul public se remarcă ca fiind un instrument indispensabil pentru orașe, coloana vertebrală a unui oraș sănătos de dimensiuni medii sau mari, dar merge la pachet doar cu măsuri complementare, cu spații pietonale de calitate și infrastructură de ciclism, care, într-un sistem multimodal, este cel mai bun prieten al transportului public și îi dă superputeri. Și, așa, sigur, e indispensabil transportul public în creșterea calității vieții urbane, pentru că ceea ce face el este că, în mod direct, redă spațiu orașului și orășenilor și creează spații pietonale din ceea ce inițial au fost, printr-o greșeală de concepție a anilor 60-70, spații carosabile. Acum, probabil toți ați văzut poza asta, a circulat pe tot internetul, dar a circulat tocmai pentru că puterea ei și mesajul ei este unul simplu, clar și puternic. În România, transportul public are niște puteri și oportunități greu de înlocuit. În urma atâtor ani de fonduri europene, ne uităm la orașe cu flote renoite, cu flote electrificate, ne uităm la infrastructuri de multe benzi dedicate în orașe, atât existente cât și în curs de pregătire, și în materie de amenințări sau de probleme, destul de multe țin de administrația locală și de să spunem, curajul politic de a lua măsuri posibil nepopulare și care pe termen scurt pot cauza congestie. Ca și nevoile umane în piramida lui Maslow, nevoile călătorului în transportul public se clădesc de pe cele mai de bază până la cele mai, să spunem, de finețe. Și în sensul ăsta o să trecem încet prin ceea ce este piramida nevoilor călătorului, începând cu conectivitatea. În esență, scopul absolut principal al transportului public este să ducă oamenii de la origine la destinație. Și Fără a bifa acest scop fundamental, orice flotă nouă și fiabilă și servicii foarte bine promovate vor eșua în scopul lor. În sensul ăsta, organizarea traseelor și a sistemelor de transport, astfel încât să fie cât mai utile orașului în mod direct, este esențială. Fiabilitatea sistemului e foarte importantă, de fapt mai importantă decât frecvența. Practic, poți să ai un serviciu de transport public care vine o dată pe oră, cât timp știi absolut întotdeauna când vine o dată pe oră și vine în mod repetitiv la fiecare și 5, să spunem. Este însă fiabilitatea, capacitatea de a te baza pe el și de a-și îndeplini funcțiunea bine de fiecare dată este esențială. Sigur, frecvența contează foarte tare aici. Literatura de specialitate ne învață că la frecvențe mai bune de 15, chiar 10 minute, oamenii nu mai consultă orarele deloc. Pur și simplu se duc în stații și așteaptă vehiculele. Și o frecvență bună, din păcate, poate face sens doar când există fluxuri de călători însemnate, sau cel puțin medii. Interfața de comunicare este absolut esențială și aici, în România, vedem destul de multe orașe care greșesc, unele dintre care cu ambiții mari, să spunem. Comunicarea în timp real a oricăror devieri, modificări de orare, a serviciilor existente și, nu în ultimul rând, a ofertelor tarifare, dacă există, e absolut esențială. Transportul public pe piața transporturilor trebuie să se vândă ca un serviciu, să aibă un brand atractiv, o abordare orientată spre client și, nu în ultimul rând, să puncteze foarte bine ce oferă, atât financiar, cât și ca și serviciu de transport propriu-zis. Sigur, condițiile contează foarte tare, dar un serviciu fiabil, cu bună conectivitate și frecvență bună, poate fi utilizat intensiv, chiar dacă condițiile lasă de dorit. Asta vedem într-o anumită capitală, dar este esențial, mai ales pentru a atrage călătorii noi, dar și pentru a-i menține pe cei fideli, să vii cu vehicule curate, cu bună comunicare în vehicule, dar și cu stații curate și tot ce înseamnă infrastructură conexă, de la băncuțe și coșuri de gunoi la mobilier urban specific. Acum, peste toate astea se clădesc soluțiile smart. Ele completează și complementează frumos un sistem de transport public când bifează bine mai ales celelalte criterii esențiale. Iar la soluțiile smart ne referim de la trafic adaptiv și prioritizări active, la aplicații care pot să facă route planning și ticketing simultan, la intermodalitate în cadrul aceleiași aplicații, practic aplicând mobility as a service la nivelul la care același card îți dă bicicleta, trotineta, autobuzul sau metrou și așa mai departe. Și așa ajungem la practic cum se clădește un sistem de succes care să fie cât poate de atractiv pentru oameni. Acum, nu o să vă pierd timpul cu de ce este ecologic transportul public, este clar pentru toată lumea că e mult mai bine pentru mediu să nu fim motorizați în mod individual. Sistemele de transport se dimensionează mai ales după publicul călător existent și subliniez cu bold potențial. Este o greșeală să construiești pentru ziua de azi în orașe dinamice care se dezvoltă. Și aici, pentru fiecare marjă de capacitate de transport, există sisteme specifice care se mulează bine. Și vreau să previn o întrebare frecventă. Trenul metropolitan face sens la fluxuri mai mici decât tramvaiul sau metroul, pentru că se poate funcționa pe infrastructuri existente, care se întrețin și din alte servicii, transportul de marfă, de exemplu. Între timp, tramvaiul sau metroul vorbesc exclusiv de infrastructură dedicată menită acelui sistem de transport. În privința costului de operare, de execuție și nu în ultimul rând al vehiculelor, lucrurile sunt intuitive. Cu cât mai mare, cu atât mai scump și cu cât mai mare, cu atât mai eficient. Economy of scale la transportul public funcționează foarte bine. Trenurile metropolitane sunt un subiect destul de fierbinte în România de azi, dar inexistent acum 5 ani și ceva ce foarte multe orașe și comunități încearcă să implementeze. Și, în esență, trenurile metropolitane sunt autobuze pe șine. Trebuie văzute ca niște servicii regulate pentru transport sistematic, nu doar legat de o nevoie punctuală de navetism, să zicem, profesional. Și vedem asta conturându-se încet. Acum, România are foarte multe oportunități de trenuri metropolitane, de la sisteme suburbane și chiar ușor rurale, până la trenuri costiere sau legate de mari metropole și poli de creștere. Anul trecut a fost anul feroviar european în Europa și vreau să cred că și asta a dat un impuls autorităților locale să se străduiască să implementeze sisteme oportune în țara noastră, că sunt destule. Și în sensul ăsta există sisteme care pot face sens și la comunități foarte mici, că e vorba de a profita de o infrastructură existentă și a pune un serviciu pe ea, nu de a construi o infrastructură costisitoare. Și știm că București pregătește un proiect pe care l-a și promovat public, știm că în Maramureș este un proiect în curs de pregătire care ar urma să lege niște orașe pe o axă organică, chiar și în județul Sălaj se încearcă profitarea de infrastructuri existente și chiar abandonate. Similar, în Cluj-Napoca există un coridor organic care leagă comunități și poate fi valorificat. Sigur, nu o să trecem prin toată România, dar există o mare și variată oportunitate de sisteme de transport, mai ales pentru că avem o mare și extinsă rețea feroviară, subîntreținută, parțial neelectrificată, dar existentă, un asset absolut important. În cazul Brașovului, oportunitatea e maximă. Nu prea există în România, în afară de capitală, noduri feroviare de asemenea învergură. Și, nu în ultimul rând, aș vrea să punctez tramvaiele, care au parte de o renaștere onorabilă în România. Practic, în cam toate orașele cu sisteme de tramvaie, infrastructura s-a modernizat, flota s-a reînnoit și ne uităm la niște sisteme de transport de performanțe europene. Mă asigur că am scos și cartoful fierbinte din buzunar. În Brașov este o oportunitate reală pentru un sistem de transport de mare capacitate, fie el tramvai sau nu, dar există niște axe organice de transport care concentrează foarte multe deplasări origine-destinație și care ar putea fi deservite eficient și rapid de sisteme de transport de mare capacitate. Scurt, vreau să demontăm 10 mituri despre tramvai, mituri care sunt comune în estul Europei și mai ales în România. Pe de o parte, nu ne uităm la o tehnologie învechită. Vehiculele s-au renoit foarte mult. Noile generații de tramvaie au podea joasă, accesibilitate, posturi de conducere ergonomice, boghiuri care permit podea joasă dintr-un capăt în altul a tramvaiului și, nu în ultimul rând, un sistem de operare care le permite bună integrare cu managementul de trafic și prioritizare activă. Tramvaiele moderne au chiar și Tram Forward Collision Warning System, practic sunt frânate în mod automat, ca și automobilele moderne, să evite accidente iminente sau, dacă nu le poate evita, măcar să le aibă la viteza minimă posibilă. În materie de investit în tramvaie, vedem de la vest la est o foarte mare varietate de noi sisteme sau extinderi de sisteme, între care aș vrea să subliniez orașul înfrățit Tampere, care a făcut o lucrare absolut impresionantă și amplă, înainte de termen și sub buget. Este un sistem de tramvai care astăzi funcționează și despre care sper să aflăm curând. Dar ele se pretează și în situații mai exotice. Acum, zgomotul și vibrațiile sunt de domeniul trecutului, de domeniul tramvailor trecutului, care, din păcate, în unele orașe încă circulă. Dar sistemele moderne cu rot sandwich, cu soluții de amortizare cu anvelopă și suspensie primară și secundară amortizată și nu intrăm în detalii, nu sună. Atât sistemul de proiectare a trenului de rulare cât și a infrastructurii sunt de așa natură încât tramvaile să meargă în liniște deplină, atât pentru călători cât și pentru cei din jurul lor. Buna relație dintre tramvaie și centrele istorice din orașe este una pe care Europa a născut-o practic și vedem zone pietonale vaste alimentate de câte o rețea discretă de tramvai, funcționând în centre istorice din mai toată Europa. Ele se pot integra în peisaj bine. Sistemele de transport nu trebuie să concureze unul cu altul, ci să fie complementare. Un metrou este binevenit în situații în care capacitatea de transport îl justifică, dar vorbim de investiții de ordin de mărime foarte diferit, cam de 10 ori, și de lucrări de amplă durată. Sigur că există situații în care axe justifică sisteme de transport de 50.000 de oameni pe oră sens, dar în cazul polilor de creștere de până în 500.000, e o discuție aprinsă, să spunem. În mod similar, autobuzele electrice sau diesel, troleibuzele, autobuzele hibride se pretează la capacități de transport un pic mai mici. Fac o treabă foarte bună, într-o zonă foarte precisă de oameni pe oră sens, dar nu pot performa cu adevărat pe axe majore, axe organice de transport. Și viața comercială este considerabil mai întinsă la vehicule feroviare și pe termen mediu și lung și asta contează. Sistemele de car sharing funcționează bine și scutesc oamenii de car ownership, doar că se pare că într-adevăr contribuie în continuare la congestie. Acum, o mașină în deplasare este o mașină, pe a ta sau publică este în continuare un automobil și motorizare individuală, ceea ce este tot mai evident și în presă. Sigur că transportul este un domeniu ca oricare altele. Acum, din fericire, nu concurează domeniile între ele, cum unora le place să pună problema în presă, și fonduri europene sunt disponibile pentru toate categoriile de interes care cresc calitatea vieții în orașe, de la cultură și educație, la transport, unde avem fonduri semnificative, pe care, după cum vedem, nu ne prea pricepem să le accesăm. Suntem destul de codași la bani pe sisteme de transport durabil. Despre interesele oculte ale oamenilor care cred în tramvai nu vreau să vă țin la discuții. Există diverse teorii interesante, dar pasiunea pentru mobilitate urbană este una reală și bunele practici cam la aceeași soluție ne aduc de fiecare dată. Și cât despre Brașov, nu vreau să trag concluzii, dar aș vrea să punctez că Reșița, la 74.000 de kilometri, tocmai își reintroduce, la 74.000 de locuitori își reintroduce sistemul de tramvai, că Arad și încă două orașe, o să le vedem îndată la sub 200.000, au sisteme vaste cu frecvențe bune, care sunt practic coloana vertebrală a transportului public din orașe, Și, da, după cum spuneam, tramvaiul în România are parte de o renaștere impresionantă și surprinzătoare. Și, nu în ultimul rând, în Brașov, un sistem de transport de mare capacitate, fie el tramvai sau nu, poate fi complementar foarte bine unui sistem de tren metropolitan. Practic, cu câteva noduri strategice, se poate crea o multimodalitate la nivel regional, chiar și în afara județului, care să permită navetiștilor sistematici, astăzi există de la distanțe semnificative, să aibă într-adevăr o opțiune mai atractivă decât automobilul personal. Pentru că, ne zicea și primarul din Bogota acum 30 de ani, un oraș bogat nu este unul în care toată lumea își permite mașini, ci unul în care toată lumea cu mașini își permite să nu le folosească. Și cu asta eu vă mulțumesc pentru răbdare și atenție.
Mulțumesc foarte mult, Tudor. O rapidă incursiune în lumea transportului public și posibilitățile care le avem în România. Acum, bineînțeles, eu o să fiu cârcotașă, că ăsta este rolul meu, să zic, da, cel mai scump lucru pe care trebuie să-l finanțeze o autoritate locală când vorbim de diferitele moduri de a transporta, cel mai scump pentru autoritate este transportul public. Sigur că îl încurajăm, că are avantajele de mediu și avantajele de scară, dar dacă ne uităm la diverse statistici, mai ales din zona olandeză, pe care le-am văzut la universitățile de acolo, în care ne arăta există tabele de cost per kilometru cu mașină proprie, mijloace de transport în comun, fie tramvai, metrou, bicicletă și mersul pe jos. Cel mai eficient într-un oraș ar fi ca toți cetățenii să meargă pe jos. Dar nu asta ne dorim cu toții, bineînțeles. Și o să-mi permiteți să mă întorc înapoi în engleză pentru a începe un scurt dialog și câteva întrebări către toți vorbitorii noștri din acest panel. Nu știu dacă mai este și Pinar încă prezentă cu noi. So I'll switch again to English to include all of our speakers in a brief 20 to 25 minutes max conversation. There are some questions which arrived also towards me, and we talk about mobility. We see that mobility as a term has so many different approaches. We can say about a circular approach, a 360 degrees approach, where we talk about inclusion, we talk about aging, we talk about the different modes of transportation and mobility as a system. But the question for a mayor is, which should be the first 3 steps he should take in consideration when actually planning to have a more carbon neutral city? And I will start, of course, with the planners over there, with Tudor and José. We have, at the European level, a target of reducing to 90% in the urban areas the CO2 emissions from transportation. What should the mayor in Romania take in consideration to do as the first 3 steps? Tudor, your reply.
Okay. Well, the Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan should be like a manual for the whole administration.
The Bible.
It's the manual, the instructions of use. It's the Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan as a concept is a strategy on a mid and long term, not just for certain projects, which covers cycling, walking, and public transport. And the fact of the matter is, these strategies have to be taken into consideration. And it is often, especially in East European states, that big projects, usually for cars, get prioritized over projects from strategies that often can be much cheaper and much more effective at acquiring direct targets. So I would say that the 3 measures are: the first one, to know and study very well the Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan; the second, to initiate studies to implement measures from that plan. Usually feasibility studies are the first step for big projects, or just implementation for measures, because you usually also get measures in sums. And I would say a third project is involving the community in solving issues and in, let's say, fine-tuning the planning process. It's often that in consultation phases, really good ideas can come from communities.
It should come from the communities because the city is built for the people, first of all. And I started by saying that we need actually to start to put the human being at the center of our planning. José, you are an architect. What was your center of planning when you started the Somes plan? What was your center for planning, the main point when you started the Somes plan?
Yeah, so for us, it was quite critical to, when it comes down to mobility, and also when it comes down to kind of design a city for everyone. We kept thinking about how we can potentially design for the most vulnerable, like how you can create a design that is an invitation for all the different users. Because, for instance, if you create a bike path that is too narrow, only the really pro bikers or the people that actually really need to use it will use it. But if you are able to design bike paths, pedestrian paths that are mainly made for children and for the elderly, then that will guarantee that everyone will use it. So that was always a topic, that was a hot topic, always on top of the table when designing, when defining the dimensions of this soft infrastructure, when designing the materiality, making sure also improving the accessibility. So that was kind of one of the main hot topics that we were looking at when it comes down to creating a city that invites everyone.
Before going back to Thiago and Pinar, I would like to go back to Tudor, because you know the local reality, and we need to take in account the local reality and the mentality of the people, but also the mentality of the city managers and the mayors over here when we talk about promoting alternative transportation modes. It is different from city to city, definitely.
Well, yes, and the point is not just to take into account the local mentality, but also to work with it and fine-tune it, try to slightly change it. Because if the general mentality is we like our cars, we want more parking, more lanes, you cannot work with that and get sustainable mobility. You have to work basically against that almost.
So what do you do when a mayor says, yes, I would like to have here a great bike lane and I would like to put also a special dedicated lane for public transportation, but I will need to raise 800 parking spots and I know that everybody will go crazy and I have the media jumping on me and the taxi driver jumping on me. What is your answer?
Well, urban planning usually is a negotiation. I learned this from my urbanist friend. It is always a means of settling all modes of transport and splitting space according to not just engineering but also political needs. And I would say that it's important that all parts of the negotiation have strong lobby. I would say that it's important that cyclists also have someone at the table every time you negotiate public space, or that some sort of accessibility or walking NGO is present in big cities and is an active part of urban planning in the city's life.
And will this be enough?
Well, it's never enough. I mean, it's also in terms of urban planning, you cannot achieve perfection. There's always a better modal share than the city has. It's the main point is to do steps in the correct way, even if they are small or timid steps or first steps. But as long as you set the proper direction, the end is almost unavoidable. You will eventually have a sustainable urban commuting system.
We hope for this. Thiago, I see that you would like also to join to the question a bit.
Yes, sure, Raluca. Can you?
Let me check.
It is on already. It's just.
Okay. Yes, now it's working.
I think that now, you can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, and I would just like to build on Tudor's point. I think he asked about the 3 steps that we could consider. I think that the first and very important one is to understand that this is a journey, and this is not a one-off exercise. We have cities in our community, our global network, going through their 5th cycle now. So they engage and understand, they plan, they implement, they measure, they engage and understand, they plan. This is a continuous process, so there's no perfect solution or a one-off discussion that will solve everything. The second one is to, when it comes to older people, to start seeing them as a problem or as beneficiaries or somebody that needs care, whether health or social care, and really start seeing a quarter and soon 30%, 40% of the population, because that's what is going to happen to most European cities in 10, 20 years, as co-designers. So let's invite these people to design the cities, not only for them, but with them, according to their will, to what they want. And the third aspect, we heard Mayor Constantin saying that in the previous panel, is that you don't really need to do that alone. There are a lot of experiences from cities, from countries, from urban planners, from architects, from local authorities, communities out there that you can use and then of course adapt to your context. You know, each city is a word, but you don't need to do that by yourself. You don't need to come up with the solutions by yourself. There's a lot there that you can harvest from, and it doesn't necessarily cost a lot of money.
We do not need to really reinvent the wheel. And when you said it does not necessarily cost a lot of money, although our mayors always say there is never the question of money, I would still go to some of this experience all of you have, and I will also invite Pinar to give her feedback about this, about simple solutions. We saw in the last year, especially through the pandemic, what mayors in city adopted as measure to really give more space to cyclists, and from, let's say, from pop-up lanes that they started to have, that they make them afterwards permanent, because the people really start to enjoy their city and to see it and understand the health benefit it brings with them. I would like to check in our discussion panel around which are like 2-3 measures that you would say, if I would be a mayor, this would be 2 topics that I could make immediately, quickly, cost efficient, good communicated, with great results in a short or medium time, so I'm gaining more from the people and support for our common cause. I'll start with you and we go through the line.
So maybe I can quickly start, and I will leave the hard technology to our colleagues over there, but perhaps the simplest, most innovative solution that you can put in place is to acknowledge and embrace your people as assets. So why do you have to rely on the bright minds of 3 or 4 people sitting on the city hall if you can rely on the expertise, the intelligence, the knowledge of your whole community? And there are concrete examples on how you can do that. So bring your community to work as partners with you. Then it's much simpler, it's more efficient, and most likely the political will and the resistance that is natural, it's part of a political process, will be much lower as well.
Thank you very much. Tudor and José afterwards, please.
Well, I would say that the fastest and cheapest measure with quick results are pop-up bike lanes, especially if they get permanentized and not cancelled eventually. The second would be public transport reorganization, which often involves doing a better job with the resources you've already got there. And this might also involve a ticketing scheme that encourages frequent users. And I would say as a third measure, closing streets for cars.
Great, this I like very much.
Yes, pedestrianizing, because the street is already there, so if there is an opportunity to do that, it's always of interest.
José?
Yeah, so one of the things I would say is that right now we all see kind of an explosion of mobility modes. If you go back in time, like 100, 150 years ago, there was like 1 or 2 mobility modes, but now we see 15, 20 of them. We have scooters, trams, metro. Tudor was explaining some of them. So I think for any politician, I think it would be important to try to integrate all of them and give space to all of them. We have seen that over the last like 50, 60 years, there has been always a priority to one of them, obviously the car. So here now the question is how all of them can co-live within the city. So that would be one. And the second one, because of its easy implementation and rapid and quick impact in the city, would be the investment of micro-mobility modes, like bikes, scooters, skaters. I mean, I think it's probably clear for a lot of people how they're more sustainable, they use less public space, and also they have the capacity to create a better urban environment. It's slower, the driver has the capacity to establish a connection with the pedestrian, and somehow they foster a greater interaction in the public space. And compared to other mobility infrastructure projects, which are also needed, like metro, buses, they are a small investment that can be actually implemented in a faster pace and have, as we have seen in many other case studies and many cities around Europe, a huge impact in the public space in the city itself.
Thank you very much. Pinar, are you still with us? I guess so. No, there is a sign from the technicians like, no. But I would be also glad not only to go through your list again, also put some other points which are much more easier, much more quicker, cost zero money. Why don't we make 30 kilometers zone? Why don't we make the speed in our cities We talk about safety, we talk about cities for our children and for our families, that we want to be in security. It's the most easiest way is to really go with the limit of the speed limit of the cars to 30 kilometers in your city. So we have the studies in a lot of cities where the injuries and fatalities went with 50% down in almost a couple of weeks, just because of a very simple decision of a mayor to say, okay guys, we don't rush. We had Isabell or Pinar saying before, it's better in slow motion. You really start to see your city, you really start to enjoy your city, and also you will have a smaller CO2 carbon footprint. This is one of the ideas. I love the idea of the pop-up lanes. I always was a big fan about this. And I will just want to share with you a story, a dialogue I had with the mayor of the city of Brussels, for those which have been over there, and I know that the majority of you have been in Brussels. It's a very dense city, a lot of institutions, a lot of people, very cosmopolitan, also in terms of cultural behavior of the city. But it it emerged lately in the idea and the rising of cyclists. And the mayor was telling us, you know what, we also have all the time problems with our activists going on the streets, that we take the car activists, of course, that we take the lanes for them, and it's even though a crowded city. So we start to make, this was before the pandemic, we start to make pop-up lanes. We just communicate very correctly, very clear to people. We make a study. We want just to know how the things will turn out. We'll try for the next 6 months and make our accounting, and afterwards we'll take a decision. What do you think happens? In 6 months, everybody already gets used to the bike lane. People start to use it. The numbers are very good. And the city just decides that it makes it permanent. It's a decision of the city council, pack, without scandal, without media, without people going on the streets, because they have the results, because it was clever communicated. And this is the way cities as Brussels, or like Paris as well, did many, many important changes in the way people are going through the streets. Thank you very much to all our speakers. I will go through the permanent progress and research in the city, go into dialogue with the community, because like this you gain from the beginning the support of the community for all the changes you want to do, communicate correctly and clearly what you want to do. The reorganization of the public transport should go smooth and quickly, easy if you do it also with a good ticketing scheme. I love the idea of mobility as a system. Mass is the future, of course, and intermodality of these systems. Closing the streets for pedestrians, a great idea. Be first that would like to walk through the streets or cycle through the streets. Integrate all players at all levels when you are planning. Thank you, Jose, for the good idea. And invest in micro-mobility. And with this, I invite you to go to the next break for 15 minutes. Apropos micro-mobility, you have the chance to use the iVelo bike share system that is already in Bucharest. Now we brought it for you to Brașov. All the users and participants involved can use the bikes for free. You just need to register it. We have also e-bikes and e-scooters, so just give a try, see what these vehicles can do for your city, see how you feel on these vehicles, and tell me tomorrow if you don't feel better on the saddle of your sheet than in a bus or just going with your own car. Thank you very much for our panelists. I'll see you in 15 minutes to showcase the next cities and have great discussion forwards.